There we go.
Bam, there it is, man.
Kind of, sort of getting this thing to work.
It's coming together.
As good as I get with it.
It's you and the Skype melding together.
Take some time off and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
If I don't do something every day, can I help you? I gotta do stuff like every day. Like, is one of my dreams is to learn how to make lasagna, and I swear I'm gonna go and buy enough to make it every day for a week, so I will remember how to do it. So that's gonna happen.
Heck yeah! Get this mess going. I'm Jared, y'all.
I'm Josh. It is good to be here. Thank you, brother.
What's up?
And man, not a whole heck of a lot, man. Just still quarantining in the USA, and
heck yeah,
just we all right, man.
I went out and got my hair cut while getting the tattoo on a bowling alley.
That's right, man. Because we can do that here.
Woo! What's your taste? To Good Morning America's credit, because I was afraid that it was just going to be another one of those stories like, oh, those people in Georgia are so stupid. They did make the point that majority of the businesses down here were like, F that noise. We're not opening yet. So it's if the people that are complaining about people going out, they were going out themselves anyway. So we're not all crazy or anything. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that there's a piece of the story that gets left out, and it really does. Excuse me. It transcends Georgia, but with us going first, we can talk about it. And it's the part of the story that frustrated me. It's what we've talked about before, and it still frustrates me. But $1,200 and no moratorium on any bills whatsoever. This was baked in from the beginning. You were always going to drop the tape or the leash or whatever you want to call it, because you're telling people they have to. If you still got bills due, you got to go make money. Yeah. So this was greenlit from way before anybody was talking about it. And the only problem I have with us going so early and all that is that you've literally told financial institutions, it's okay, take people's businesses, because it's like, well, we told you could open. It was your choice to stay closed. And it's like, that's going to get real ugly over the next 6 months. And that was the problem I have with it. Because as far as like, well, people are just going to get out and la-di-die, man. Some people are dumb. Most people aren't. 85% of the country is like, yeah, we should still be locked down. And Georgia's in the country, so most people here are not going to go out and do dumb stuff. So it's not, oh, businesses are open, people are going to be foolish. It's that, well, we told you could open, so checks due. And that's what frustrates. That's the only thing that really frustrates me about it. But again, that's a bigger issue because we talked about that from day one. It's like, well, what's $1,200? Is that every month? Is that, well, wait a minute, what is this? And it's all like, if they don't tell you that bills ain't due till the economy starts back up, it's not going to matter anyway. So again, I'm sorry to beat the point to death because we've talked about it quite a bit, but that's the whole thing is like, nah, man, as long as junk is due, people are going to have to get out and make that money because
those bills might get delayed, but they are not going away.
That's the point. The moratorium, you don't do it, and then you pick up once the economy picks. And that's my whole thing too. Is like you have to get rid of them. You can't just be sitting there backlogging stuff. But of course, everybody is. You're right. That's the frustration. Is like, dude, even if they say, "Oh, it's not due now," you'll just owe us 6 months when we get back. It's like, no, that's not how y'all should be doing this. But it's how we're doing it because it's how we do everything. Because man, if you've never been to America, let me tell you. It's like being in a bad relationship with the place that you work. It just is, man. It's like living in America is like working for a really, really bad company in a lot of ways.
And you should be thankful that we let you.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. That has been the attitude here for a long time, but particularly post 9/11, which sounds crazy because that's 19 years ago. But I'm here to tell you, I ain't worked anywhere that does, hey, since the Twin Towers, man, you should be thankful you have a job. Everybody brings that junk up every chance they get. And I'm like, y'all just need to stop this mess, please. Anyway, I'm bringing up old stuff. Sorry.
Nah, but that's the conversation that came up where I worked. And people, will make their own decisions. But at the same time, my opinion was we got to go back sometime. And even if, I shouldn't say if, when there's a vaccine, I ain't claiming I'm going to be first in line to get it. So my feelings are like it'll work itself out. But I really do feel like it's kind of like some of the actors that I heard do interviews after Jim Carrey was the first guy to get such a huge fee, like $20 million back in the 90s. And you had guys like Tom Hanks and guys like that come behind him like, thank you for being first. Somebody's got to go first. Is the state of Georgia just trying to make a play for WrestleMania? I don't know.
Yeah, it's silly, but the whole thing with like, and it's so funny. I don't know how they don't know which way this is going to go, because the man has told you repeatedly that he's a scorpion. He's told you endlessly that he is a scorpion. Why don't you believe him? So Brian Kemp and what's his name, DeSantis in Florida, have literally been two little piglets fighting to see who can get their snout deeper in Donald Trump's trough. That's just what they're doing. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do what Donald wants me to do, and he'll call me by name, and it's like, you know, he's going to throw you under the bus. How's the underneath of that martyr, Brian Kemp? Because that's exactly what he did. Like, they disagree with Brian Kemp, and it's like, man, it's like, this guy, you're doing exactly what he wants you to do, and there you go under that bus. It's like,
oh man,
I don't know why y'all keep falling for it, but it did make me laugh. I guess because, again, I'm with you as far as got to get the economy started back sometime. Of course, that was always that's the problem I've had since day one, is like, y'all ain't never going to stop taking money from people. So you're going to make folks go back, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. I hope it's not exponentially worse, but this was always going to be I think this is always the way that we were going to handle it. Always.
Yeah. So with all that going on, there was still some fun stuff. I thought it was fun watching. If you believe Tony Kornheiser, this was the 2021 draft, because he doesn't believe it's going to be a football season this year. It was. I haven't watched it in a long time since they moved it off of Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And this was my first time. Like, well, nothing else on, might as well check it out. And it was just the look on Joe Burrow's face when he sat back down on that couch and his mom and dad are still standing. He's just like, do I have to go?
I do play for the Bengals now.
Oh,
for real, man. What a trash organization. I feel bad for him. He's such a nice guy. I feel bad for him, because it's just.
Why did I wish for this?
I don't know what it is about professional football teams in Ohio, man, but they just, neither one of them can. They just can't get their junk together. They just can't. I hate it. I hope it
looks so good on paper, and it just never seems to come together.
Awful, just god awful. And it's the Browns deserve it, though. I mean, if you're dumb enough to hand the entire direction of your franchise, and I'm not talking about your on-field leadership, because the quarterback is your on-field general. Okay, fine, but I'm talking about letting him handpick his coach, which he never takes any hits for Freddie Kitchens. Freddie Kitchens was the offensive coordinator who, oh man, Baker just loves him. And then he becomes the head coach. You don't think that's a coincidence? Because apparently people thought that was, oh no, that's got nothing to do with Baker. Now they got to get rid of him. And it's all like, your boy Baker is a terrible talent scout. That's all there is to it. Just get out of here. But yeah, my one thing with the draft that I was bummed about was I was really hoping, and I don't know if these details were even part of it, but I was really hoping that the Julio Jones to Washington in exchange for the number 2 pick, I was really hoping that was something we would do, because Young's a bad sucker, man. So I was like, shoot. But if DC wanted him that bad, I understand too, because I was really hoping we might make that move, but it's okay.
The rumors I kept hearing, like it was just something that came across Facebook, was there was some type of trade up they were going to try to do to get Jalen Hurts, and that didn't happen, but it didn't hurt my feelings too bad that it didn't.
Is this Atlanta?
Oh yeah.
Man, Atlanta drafts a quarterback, I would throw up. Just because, don't get me wrong, it's not that I'm like in camp. I like Matt. I think Matt's a good player, but Matt's got all the money in the world, and it's like it's like we talked about, man. It really is the cycle, and it's so strange to me that people will talk about it, but they don't talk about it. Well, every time, a guy gets a big contract, they don't go to the playoffs anymore. Yeah, it's because you literally put all your eggs in one basket. And it's why it took Seattle 5 years to get back up. And it's why I wish more people would talk about how good they were last year, because the Legion of Boom is gone. They don't have any of those guys anymore. And look what Pete did in 5 years. He got them right back up playing that nasty defense. And I'm like, that's quite impressive, man. But everyone's going to do that. Whenever you like Joe Flacco, what happened to the Ravens after that? They fell off the map. Same thing with the Seahawks. Same thing with the Falcons. Whenever you have that big quarterback, then get the big money. Hey, man, you ain't got no money for nothing else.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's a silly situation. But it happens in every sport, really. But the Warriors are just the exception to that rule but it's because they drafted everybody. So you wound up, you wound up being able to pay Durant and Curry because Curry was still on rookie money. And so it's like, it's different now. But, if basketball ever comes back too, people jumped off hating the Warriors real quick because they were so bad when they got to play last year. We're going to go right back to hating those boys all over again because it's that stockpile, what they're doing, what they're putting together as far as like to move. And people think they're going to draft that kid from, supposed to be Memphis, but then wasn't Memphis. I forgot his name. But we'll see, man, because I think this is silly to put all this stuff out there. But hey, man, predictions are fun. Prognostications are fun. I think they're moving to make a big 11th hour play to Milwaukee for Giannis. Because it's going to be a situation, kind of like we talked about with the Revival, man, where I really do. I hope the Revival's attitude is this much cash and the ability to work for any company we want to, or you can say no. We'll go work for all those companies. We'll be back here in a year. You will say yes, but that number is going to be a whole lot higher when we see you in a year.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping. I don't know if I should say I'm kind of hoping. I'm kind of thinking that's what Golden State is going to try and do with Milwaukee. Like, look, man, you can either take all these draft picks and, if they want to put players in there too, you can take all these draft picks now, or you can lose him for nothing next summer and we'll just go straight KD on it.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't surprise me. But, man, that team plus Giannis, just get out of here. That would be so disturbingly disgusting, man. It's like, I guess it's just advice I've given my basketball people is don't forget how to hate Golden State just yet. I don't think we're out of the woods, man.
keep that fire going.
Right, man. You got hate in your heart, let it out.
Oh, yes. I had to write them down, but who the Falcons ended up getting in the first round is A.J. Terrell from Clemson. Second round is Marion Davis from Auburn. The third round is Matt Hennessy from Temple. The fourth round is Mikael Walker from Fresno and Jalen Hawkins from Cal. And in the seventh round, Sterling, I know I was going to get this name wrong, Hittricker from Syracuse as a punter. So I was surprised to see. I didn't think kickers ever got drafted, but every once in a while one does. So I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, if you spend a draft pick on a specialist, you're right. That usually says something, man. And it's one of my favorite things ever where the Raiders used a first-round pick on Janikowski, and people laughed him out of the room. But it's like, he was a stud there for 15 years, wasn't he? Yep. So it's like, okay.
He'd probably still be playing if he wanted to.
Janikowski's amazing. I went to a Tech game one time when they were playing Florida State, and of course they killed us because I wasn't at when Tech finally. It was the Miracle on Techwood. I'm pretty sure is the one that was. I've got them mixed up now, man. Sorry, but it was the fumble recovery in the end zone to beat Florida State. I wasn't there. I was not in the building. Every time I've seen Tech and Florida State play, Florida State's killed us. But I went early enough, and they were warming up because, specialists are always out there. And I swear, man, that dude was like lined up 60 yards. And just every time he would hit the ball, it sounded like someone taking a baseball bat to a watermelon. It was just it just sounded different. Yeah. It's like people talk about, Ryan warming up in the bullpen, and you can hear the fastballs hitting, and it sounds different. It was the same thing with Janikowski. It was like shotgun blast. Yeah. Like, oh, my God, who is this kid?
Yeah. Oh, Christ.
Dude, it was scary, man.
But hopefully there's some type of season. And as far as I'm concerned, man, just get rid of the preseason. That's what we've been wanting for the longest time.
Dude, absolutely. They want to, well, we need like a 17th week and you got to play more games. Got to have more games. Cool. Just get rid of preseason. Have all of them count, because take it from us that like college football, having every game matter is cool. It means something. The preseason's awful, especially considering that I guess it's just proof that the NFL's in a position to where they don't need to do anything for fans, because if preseason games were $10 to get into and you got autographs, you'd have people fighting for those tickets, but you don't have to. So you charge normal prices for. Ain't nobody going to pay you for the cost to get into Mercedes-Benz to watch our preseason game. Get out of here. That's garbage.
Crazy talk.
Yeah,
Sheer
man.
Crazy talk.
It's terrible.
But,
terrible.
Man, terrible.
Yeah, just think about Charles being on What's Up with That.
Yeah. Man, talking about y'all know y'all come to me for all the hoop news and opinions, but I've went crazy into The Last Dance this week. There's episodes 3 and 4 on the DVR tonight, and I've watched 1 and 2, and it's just one of those documentaries that I think it's calling it The Last Dance comes straight from this memo that Phil Jackson sent out to everybody when he was basically told, no matter what you do, this is it.
Yeah.
And I don't, so, but it's still the Michael Jordan story. And Michael Jordan is just one of those guys. He's got that Hogan vibe where no matter what comes out about him or how bad it is, there's part of me that's just always going to have that childhood love.
Oh, Michael gets the biggest free pass in the history of this country. And yes, that includes the current president. And that's why, it being the Michael Jordan documentary is why I'm not watching it. Because if you made a documentary about those teams, about everyone except him, I would be fascinated. But I saw it. We were watching basketball then. I was 17 years old when that was going on. And I love those teams. I absolutely love watching those teams play. And that completely includes Mike. Because particularly that last three-peat, man, it was just this beautiful, symbiotic. It's impossible to describe how much fun those teams were to watch play, especially it was the 96 team that was so good, but all three of them were fantastic. But the one bit of information, they finally broke down Scotty's contract information. Yeah. Same thing. People are like, well, it was stupid. It was a dumb deal. He shouldn't have signed that deal. Why do you have to bury the guy? You got to be kidding me. If Michael didn't make money early on. Okay, so when Michael's not getting paid what he's worth, he's selfless. When Scotty doesn't get paid what he's worth, he's stupid. That's what drives me nuts about this entire conversation. And my main point about the 98 team is this. I left this on a picture the other day. Someone had put the numbers where they had like the salaries for 1998. Where Mike's at $33 million, and the next two closest guys, pardon me, are Tony Kukoc and Ron Harper at about I think it was $4.45 million apiece. And that's okay. Hey man, Michael's the star. Okay, that's fine. I'm just here to tell you, if LeBron James ever made 8 times as much as the next highest paid player on his team, I'm pretty sure people would have opinions about it.
Oh yeah.
Pretty sure we'd hear about that. But it's just the fascinating thing about those teams to me, man, is that people just, well, it wasn't a super team. Michael did it by himself, which is crap. And it's something that I'm hoping that this documentary will help dispel, especially that second three-peat. That's as close to a super team as you were going to get in that era, because Kukoc is one of the more monstrously underrated players of all time. And people don't like him because, well, Jerry Krause wanted to wipe Michael Jordan and la-di-da. Well, as soon as you make it Tony versus Michael, everyone's going to side up with Michael. The part they leave out is the same part they leave out about Christian Laettner on the Dream Team. Oh, Christian Laettner was a punchline. It was silly. He shouldn't have been there. Do you ever hear those guys talking crap about him? Because every day he showed up at the gym and he was ready to kill somebody. He's ready to eat people because they were all, all right on, this kid's okay. All right, good. Same thing. Anybody that played with Kukoc is like, okay, Tony, cool. And that includes Mike. You'll never hear him say it, but he doesn't talk junk about him either.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Kukoc is very underrated. Pippen, of course, is the ultimate background dancer player of all time. Steve Kerr coming off the bench. This is the thing. I'm sorry to get so sidetracked. And it's messed up because I haven't even seen these, but I do love these teams, so it's fun talking about them. And I understand what I'm about to say. I'm talking about trios, but I swear it's not the triangle. I understand. I promise this is not the triangle offense everyone talks about. It's not that. I'm just talking about trios of players. One of the more fascinating things about this group of players and why I say, yeah, they're a super team. Goodness. When you start the game, you got Michael, you got Scotty, you got Ron Harper. That's three guys that can effectively run the point, create their own shot, and score. That's awesome. You have 3 point guards. One of them goes and sits down. 2 of them go and sit down. You've got Kerr and you've got Kukoc. That's 2 more guys that can do it. So at any time, any combination of those 5 players on the court at one time is just masterful. That's really, really, it's why they're the most fun team to play as on 2K, man, because you've just got the band leader out there no matter who's got the ball. Just run your game. It's a fascinating team, and it's why I would love the documentary if it was about something besides, this is why Michael's the best, but I know that's what they're going to do, because if it wasn't, A, ESPN wouldn't run it, and B, Michael never would have signed off for them to release it, because there's a reason it's been gathering dust for all this time, because Michael was concerned that, well, it might hurt my image if people see what a complete piece of crap I am, not knowing that he's Teflon. It don't matter. They could have video of him punching his wife in the face and people would defend him. So it's just, Michael can get away with anything, man.
It's not about having the video. It just makes that stuff a lot harder to defend.
Apparently so. But his folks will do it. Michael fans are never, he's just like, I mean, again, because the Kaepernick stuff really exposed an awful lot of this. A lot of it. Because a lot of people that wanted to jump up and down and defend Colin Kaepernick is like, well, you know that basically Michael got Kareem blacklisted for this stuff because Kareem had the audacity to call out Michael and say, there are other things besides scoring points and selling shoes. And Michael's like, no, there aren't. And everybody sided up with Michael because, well, he's a ruthless businessman. So now we're back on the Vince McMahon. Ooh, that's something we'll talk about in a minute, because I think the news as to why Vince has been so ornery lately, I think it's come to the surface. Anyway, I got sidetracked. Very sorry.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
No way. I was just going to say I'm just going way off on this team, but they are fascinating to me, and I would like to watch the doc, but I just know that when they get on that, oh, how great thou art, Michael stuff, I'd get mad and I'd turn it off.
I do relate everything pretty much to wrestling.
Oh, me too.
Because that's just, but it starts with episode 1, and everybody was coming out against the documentary saying, like, how can they make Jerry Reinsdorf the villain? It's like, well, because they have the video. that's one reason.
The thing about Reinsdorf being the villain is, my question would be this: you've heard of 11 Rings, right? Phil's book. Yeah. That's existed for a long time. I've read it 4 times. Jerry Reinsdorf is the bad guy. He's a complete jerk. If
you're gonna, another point is I need to make real quick is the director is Jason Here. Same guy. He directed the Andre documentary for HBO.
Oh, okay.
A year or 2 years ago, and so basically, I guess I don't know exactly what he directed. I think he just sat down and interviewed everybody. Well, Reinsdorf dies 4 months before he starts doing that part of it, so he had a lot of that footage that when they knew what that year was going to be, and they kind of went wrestling shadows on that ass and let this video crew come in. That's part of what makes it worth watching. Is there's a lot of footage of those guys behind the scenes that were just desensitized to today, because you know what a lot of these guys' houses and practice facilities look like. We didn't have that stuff back then, so that, you know, even seeing those guys working out is way different. But to have Michael know it's his story. We're not going to make him the bad guy. So Reinsdorf is, because it was his idea to break up the team, and it's like there's no need to even do this. And from what I gather from, like, because they sit down and talk with Phil, and anytime you get to sit down and hear him give his opinion, I'm going to listen and give him a lot of credit, because he lays it out. It was like, you know, Reinsdorf wanted I'm sorry, Reinsdorf is the owner. Krause wanted credit for all this stuff, and if there's any proof to who deserved most of the credit, is Phil went and did it again. Krause did not. He tried. They did not.
Yeah, see, that's the cutie. That's my favorite thing is that, and I'm glad that we've got him being the bad guy now, where Phil can actually get a little credit for something. Because when it's Michael versus Phil, Kobe, he had Kobe. He sure did. And he had Shaq too. And then he didn't. Then he won 2 more. It's like, y'all, the disrespect for Phil Jackson makes me insane. And also, apparently there's a quote where Michael is explaining why he didn't like Phil. And he point blank says, well, I didn't like Phil when he first got here because he was coming in to take the ball out of my hands. And he's right. And this was in Phil's book too. That's why I love it so much. He literally had the conversation with, yes, this is a factual statement. The most selfish player anybody had ever seen. Michael's the greatest winner ever. He wasn't pre-Phil. He was not pre-Phil. He was a selfish hog. All he wanted to do was win scoring titles. And Phil sat him down and convinced him that championships were more important than scoring titles. And in 1991, when they got one, Michael said, by God, he's right. And there you go. It's the greatest piece of Zen mastery in the history of the game. It's all like, I promise you, when you win one of these championships, you're going to like that so much more. And Michael said he was right. And there you have it. And then he went, like you said, he went and did it again.
It feels like Jerry Krause is the Eric Bischoff of the story, where he kind of, starts to decide, like, why don't I get out and get some of that shine?
It's true.
That I'm so fond of.
Yeah, well, I feel bad for throwing Reinsdorf under the bus because he actually was a pretty good guy. You're right. It's Jerry Krause. It's because they're the same daggum name. I constantly forget. But yeah, Jerry Krause. Jerry Krause pulled a Dustin Hoffman from Wag the Dog. So I want credit. I want the credit. And it's like, okay, yeah, throw Phil out, throw Mike out. Yeah. So, which Mike was never going to make that money again anyway because they gave him all the money, as we know, because he got the breakdown. But that's the other thing too, man. The only thing that Jerry Krause deserves credit for is robbing Scottie Pippen and having the second best player probably in the entire league. God, what was he, like, I think 6th or something in salary on that team? It's like, dude, you had highway robbery where you got Scottie Pippen on a long-term deal for no money. That's the only thing you ever did. That's it. Because, sorry.
Where I don't see where Jerry Reinsdorf gets off is allowing it to happen, because him being the owner, and there's even an interview that he sits down and does with the documentary where he's like, he says he told Scottie, like, this is too long of a contract. Don't sign this. I'm like, well, why did you let this happen?
Yeah, man, it's the Scottie thing. I'm glad it's come out just because it's, again, there are people that are never going to give Scott credit for anything, and it's a real shame, man. It's a real shame that when Phil tried to snap him up to be on those first Laker teams, he couldn't get him because, jerk that I am. Phil and Scottie went in the ring together without Mike would have been great to me. I'd have loved that, but that was never going to happen. So that's how come that deal got vetoed. It's the same thing with the Bulls in '94. Now that's a team you should make a documentary about, because when Michael decided, I'm going to go play baseball because the league said you've been caught gambling and we are not going to Pete Rose you because you're too important for us, but we got to suspend you for a year. It's exactly what happened. Everyone knows that's what happened, but leave all that junk out. Again, give me a Bulls documentary with no Michael Jordan. Talk about that '94 team. That team was unbelievable. I think they won 58 games. Scottie should have won MVP. And if basically the league hadn't jumped up and said, it's 1985 all over again, and we're going to rig it for the Knicks. Who knows? I don't think they would have beat Houston, but they might have. That team, that's a much more interesting documentary. But at the same time, if you didn't have people, because that's what's driven me crazy about this whole thing, is how no one has asked, how'd they get all this footage? Because they shot it at the time, and little Michael had a little pouty fit. I don't want documentary released. So it hadn't been released until all of a sudden that guy named James goes to L.A. and opens a school in Cleveland. Now all of a sudden I want my spotlight back. He's such a diva. Michael is. It just drives me crazy. Again, he gets the biggest pass of anybody I've ever seen. ever. Anybody else acting like this would be ostracized. And it's not just that people let him do it; they kiss his rear end for it. I'll never get it. I've seen lots of people that could play basketball. So
yeah, so that's what kind of the breakdown is of episode 2, is where it's the Scottie Pippen episode, and that's what happening during this season was, Scottie Pippen sitting down for this documentary to be interviewed looks kind of like the Jason Newsted in the Some Kind of Monster documentary, where even all these years after the fact, he looks refreshed, he looks young, he looks like I'm cool with everything that happened. And another quick thing to mention about episode 1 is how in the world does Sidney Moncrief look younger now than he did back then? They sat down, they interviewed him for part of it. He's like, he looks younger now.
It is something.
How in the world does it happen?
It is something amazing about African American men that were like a lot of famous athletes in the 80s. It was something about the hairstyles and the mustaches.
Yeah.
And then they get older and trim them up or change them. Tony Gwynn did that. When Tony Gwynn shaved that mustache off, he looked like he was 22 years old again. It's unbelievable. Who was the other one that, oh man, because I'm with you, Sidney Moncrief. It's not only that he looks like he could play, it's like, this has got to be the best player in the league if he got out there now. It's unreal.
Yeah. So, but it's when you're seeing the footage of what's going on with the team at the time, and Scotty just looks stressed and the weight of the world on his shoulders, and it's years after the fact, and he's like, he looks younger now than he did then. But it's episode 2. Scotty is sitting out the season because he had surgery before the season started, and Mike's like, it was a selfish thing to do. He could have had it in the summer, but I think Scotty was like, well, I'll show you how valuable I am.
Look, you left, and I kept the ship afloat and never got credit for it. So I'm going to go sit down and let you see what it's like. And see, Michael should have known by then, because that's something really good in Phil's book, is that Barcelona was a big deal to Michael in the sense that they basically went off and he had to play against Scotty. And he learned real quick, because he told that was the thing. He said, Michael, the day they got back from Spain, I think he said he called him and he was like, we're about to do something special. Because people don't ever talk about that, man. The Bulls they only had the 1 ring before the Dream Team, as far as I know. They might have had 2. It was the summer of '92, but yeah, I guess that's right. They would have had 2 of them.
That's when it started.
Yeah, but it's just like, he's like, that's when I knew that we were going to be something special. And I'm like, hey, you did come right, man. Because basically, Scotty went over to Spain and kicked everybody in the ass. Him and, who was the other one that everybody was so impressed with? I know Charles. Charles was a big deal anyway, but Chuck, he had a really good summer. He played well in those games, but I know Scotty was the one that everybody left like, oh my God, who is this guy? Pretty cool, man.
That's one of the, kind of things I thought about watching the documentary, and the stuff kind of comes back to you. It's like, I would much rather be in Scottie Pippen's position than as opposed to Charles Oakley, who got traded before all that started.
Yeah, and I suppose they don't have Michael on talking about that, because, boy, Michael was a pissy little baby when his cop got traded. Because Charles Oakley in Chicago was basically Marty McSorley in Edmonton and L.A. for Gretzky. If you get too close to Wayne, Marty's going to come see you. And that was Oakley's job. Oakley was basically a cop, and it was just like, Michael whined, and LeBron gets all his coaches fired. Okay. Again, they try to act like he's this selfless, magnanimous guy, and it's like, Jordan is the most selfish prick on earth, and that's okay for where he lives and how he works and the fact that he's Mr. Nike. That's okay, but that's the other thing that people hate, but it's true. If corporate America didn't love Michael Jordan, you wouldn't know who he is. And if you built a time machine and brought Michael Jordan to the modern game, how would he do? Well, I'll tell you how he'd do. I think in the average game, or the modern game, Michael could average 40 probably, because I'm sure in the modern game with modern rules, he'd develop more of a 3. His 3 wasn't bad anyway. It wasn't terrible. He just didn't shoot very many because that was the game at the time. He'd probably shoot more 3s and probably make more 3s and probably score more points than he ever had before. But what's he going to do defensively? can't hand check no more. So you've already made him less of a player because of just the way the game is played now. And the other huge thing is this. With everybody getting with other guys to try and win championships, they'd run that guy. People can't play with Jimmy Butler because he's too demanding. So Michael's just so demanding. Okay, that wouldn't fly right now. Wouldn't fly. It's like saying if Bear Bryant was coaching in the NFL now, how would he do? He'd do terrible because the team would mutiny against him and they'd get him fired. Mike's the same way. It's just people don't respond to that anymore.
Yeah, and that's one of the points that was made about how he was worried about how he would come off in the documentary and all that stuff. And I just I haven't seen anything too egregious yet of what's been shown. It's just it's what I'm looking forward to is I think tonight. I don't know if it's episode 3 or 4, but you're getting into the Rodman Comes to Town episode. So that's one I'm looking forward to a lot.
This is a very important part of the Bulls story. Is that first things first, you had to break up the bad boys because they were never getting off the mat against those guys. So you had to go to Detroit and say you can't play like that anymore. Then you had to take pieces from them. Because Rodman, everyone knows that Dennis was a bad boy and Dennis wound up in Chicago, but it ain't just him. They wound up with 3 of those cats, James Edwards, John Sally, Dennis Rodman. All 3 of those guys at one point or another won championship rings with the Bulls. And I think that's a huge part of it because it's like people talk constantly about the Lakers weren't tough enough to beat the Celtics. Yeah, right up till they were. Went and got Michael Thompson and beat their brains in 1987. It's the same thing with the Bulls. Bulls weren't steely enough to beat the Pistons until the league said you can't play like that anymore. But they still appreciated those guys and went and brought them in, made them part of the team. And it's like, this is cool. Again, it's that top to bottom thing. People just get so obsessed with the frontline stars on the team. But you look up and down rosters, man, it goes deep. There's a lot of guys that just come in and contribute. And it's like Draymond. Draymond's probably the most famous of those guys because people trip on him all the time because it's like, well, how is this guy's a star? How does anyone even know who this guy is? Well, it's the same reason that Bruce Bowen's number is in the Raptors in San Antonio. Bruce Bowen never scored any points, but watch those teams, man. That was the most tenacious, nasty defender who did all the little stuff. It's unreal. I love guys like that, man. And the Bulls had plenty of them. It's just that shiny 23 is going to – I mean, dude, Scotty couldn't get any pub. There's no way you're going to get deep enough to talk about the guys that do the little stuff, but they had them, and it's like you said. Phil knew what he was doing. Building teams, Phil Jackson's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I've been digging it, and it's one of those things. It's going to be on Netflix soon, but with ESPN running, it's like, man, I want to watch it now.
Yeah, man. It's cool. Again, I wish there was more footage of other teams or other of those Bulls teams because that would just be. Anyway, it's cool. Sorry to get so discussy about something I ain't even seen, but I'm with you. I like those teams. So, pardon me. I ate not too long ago, so I keep clearing my darn throat.
Oh heck yeah!
Sorry about that, man.
I've still been learning a lot about ordering from apps and stuff, and something that has nothing to do with nothing. I have vindication to report. It's been tough. It's been hard. Why in the world I got the wild hair up my ass with the notion to do this a few years ago? I don't know why I thought, I bet they've never heard this idea. But so for some reason or another, because I despise and hate ordering anything that could remotely be seen as off the menu. And no matter how easy it will be. But I get this idea to email Chick-fil-A about, I think at the time they were doing some type of like lemon chill drink or something like that. I was like, why not? And because I've never really cared for lemon in the sweet tea, but lemonade, the whole Arnie Palmer thing, I'm like, that's pretty awesome. I can get behind that.
I can get down with that.
And so I sent this email. I don't know why I did this to Chick-fil-A. Like, why not add this to the menu? I'm not soliciting for money or an idea or credit. I'm not Jerry Krause. None of that stuff. And and it was just the, and I think that's why the soliciting word sticks with me. So like that's like what the response you get back is like, oh, we don't accept the solicitations. Is like, and that's the tone that I've read it as like, and nobody asked you nothing, fatty. So shut up.
Have another sandwich.
I've received vindication through the Chick-fil-A app, because guess how you can order your sweet tea now is they give you the option to just do the half and half, and I'm like, oh, and I pull up to the drive-thru, and that's one of the things they're checking everything, be sure everything's on the order right, and the girl says, and the Arnie Palmer is like, that is not an Arnie Palmer. That's mine.
I was hoping that what they would say when you pulled around, it's all like, oh, you got the Arnie Palmer too, right? Thank you, Mr. Wallace. It's like, we know it was you, but thank you.
So, why that popped in my head, I have no idea.
When you've got both items on your menu, knock it out. They got good lemonade too, man. I mean, their lemonade's famous as crap, so that's great. That's awesome, man.
Can't go wrong either way.
Yeah, but I still haven't done Chick-fil-A, and it's messed up too because I'm like sitting on a gift card for that place, and I know exactly what I want. Their Cobb salad is fantastic, but I have never once ordered it with like grilled nuggets, and I'm like, I'll bet that thing would be the most slamming, awesome, fantastic ever. I just haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna have to because that thing is, God, it's good.
The Chick-fil-A app has that, in ordering for them, has that Papa John's thing where you build up points.
Oh, okay, cool.
For everything you order, so it's like, man, it's just the way to go. Why all of them don't do that? It's kind of like, what are y'all waiting on, man?
The Taco Bell, I can understand why Taco Bell doesn't do it, because even as often as I go there, if I suggested, man,
we don't accept solicitations.
Yeah, why don't you do like a point system for your app for like your loyal customers? They would go son-in-law on me and be like, hell no, get out of here.
That's my money.
That's my money. Hell no, get out of here. It's one of my favorite lines in any movie ever. Here's the thing about son-in-law. The man's heard me say this before. I'll say it for any of you guys watching this that aren't Southerners. The line's not even that funny. There's nothing in it. It's just that with that actor being from the South, he can say it in a way that you can only say if you're from here. I was telling you, there was on the Mindy Project where the episode where Danny and his buddy from New York are going back and forth about him like writing him prescriptions, and his friend is outside selling like black market Broadway tickets, and he just has this way of saying, I gotta go, I got a guy. And I can't say it because I ain't from New York. But the way that dude says it, it's so awesome because I'm like, man, you got to be from there or you can't say it. Yeah. It's the same thing with, oh, no, get out of here. Just the way that dude says it. It's like he ain't even really mad. That's what's so funny about it. Yep. Anyway, I've gotten sidetracked. But that's what Taco Bell would say if I tried to, because I eat there too often. But, man, the Chick-fil-A app I ain't even downloaded yet. So that reminds me, and I appreciate it. I'm going to do that tonight. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, man, it's that good stuff.
Yeah, man. There's no reason for me not to have that silly thing.
Yeah. But, man, I guess because, it's my weekly viewing that I have to watch every week is I sit down and watch the Dino Bravo Dark Side episode. Yeah. And I guess one of the things that shocked me the most about it was the amount of people that were shocked that I didn't even know running cigarettes was a thing. It still is. That's what the I Can't Breathe situation that went down in New York a few years ago was all about. Old buddy was selling Lucy's on the street. And now I would imagine that Dino, especially in that time period, probably had the same thought process that I would. Like, running cigarettes is probably less dangerous than cocaine, less risk involved as far as what you can get charged with. So let's just do cigarettes. Plus, it was just that time when, and the markup on them is still so crazy. It's like, I don't know what it was in Canada at the time. I think they get into it. It's like, man, it's like, I think in New York it's like $10 or $12 a pack. So people just sell them on the street. Like, man, that's big. That's business. And so anyway, that was just my initial kind of shock with like people like, how does somebody get involved in that? Like, real easy. It's still going on, brother. It's the opening scene of Beverly Hills Cop is cigarettes out of the back of the truck.
Yeah, man.
So
It's like we talked about, man. Like when I was working at the liquor store and stuff like that, you would have people that would ask you, they would just want a single, and it's like, don't sell them like that here. And they're like, are you serious? There's people from different states have no idea that that's illegal here.
Mm-hmm. I think even when there are gas stations in Atlanta that you can go and buy them that way. I don't know, and even if you get them on the street, I think it's still like $4 then, so it's not cheap.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's how some people do it. And I guess the other cool thing about the episode is just you do learn. They don't focus as much on that as I expected them to. They do focus a lot more on Dino being the man up in Montreal that I didn't realize he was. And I guess that was probably my biggest takeaway from is him coming into a situation where he was just like another one of the guys that got bought up from the territory and was in the situation where he's like, I was used to being the man. Now I'm doing jobs. I was told I was going to work with Hogan. It didn't happen. F this noise is kind of, they don't like how I'm being treated. I don't like having to dye my hair blonde for no good reason. So I'm out. And that's, and then the other thing about this episode that was so cool to me was I just, it makes you want to sit down and learn more French.
Oh man, that's my obsession at the moment is the French language, man.
Oh man, that's a lot of subtitles in this one, and just because that's who they had to sit down and interview.
Yeah,
if with the either them speaking French or having that Montreal accent that they felt they had to subtitle it anyway. It's just one of those kind of things I didn't expect to take from the episode. Be like, oh man, I need to do some Rosetta Stone because I don't know any of it whatsoever. But
hit that Duolingo, man. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great, man.
and it's it's just like the theme of most of those episodes. It's called Dark Side of the Ring for a reason. So we gotta have that moment we drag you into the coals.
Yeah.
And
it's AJ and Undertaker, man. You done real good. You're a loyal viewer. You're here all the time.
Yeah.
Into the ground with you. Just check you right.
We ain't gonna do you like that.
For real. Here you go.
Kick. And they sit down with his daughter and just her tell it, because the wife and she was like super cool. I could have done a lot more sitting down and talking with her, but one of the first things out of her mouth when she sits down and talks with him is like, I can't talk about that night. But she does say, I knew exactly what he was doing. And I think what he started off as is being kind of like the bill collector, the Rocky for the local mafia. And, who better to do it? The guy that looks like that shows up at your door like, take whatever you need.
Here's a check, sir.
So she knew what he was into, but just, I think was kind of like, had that opinion that Dino had, like, how dangerous can this be? And it ended up being pretty freaking dangerous. But they sit down with the daughter, and it's just, you hear conflicting reports about how many shots were fired, but the one thing that is undeniable is, you have proof of how many. I didn't think a brain could take 7 shots to the head, but good God Almighty! So the daughter shows up at 6 years old, I believe 6 or 7 at the time, and she's at the funeral, not really understanding what's going on, couldn't recognize him until she saw the hands, and that's the moment when everybody's kind of like, oh Christ, God.
That's messed up, man.
Yeah. So that was their, we call this Dark Side for a reason moment.
His head was gone.
Yeah. Jesus, y'all.
Seriously, y'all didn't have to do me like that, but we did.
We's gonna.
That's right, man. You didn't have to do nothing. You didn't have to watch it, did you? But you did, so now you just take what you get.
Yeah. So, man, it's, another good episode. Another one to look forward to this week is the Dr. D, David Schultz, and John Stossel conflict. They actually got John to sit down and talk. John's going to be on it. He sat down and talked with him. I was like, oh man, that's the one guy they're not going to have, but he's on it because he's a y'all going to put me on TV?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's the only thing anyone remembers about him now anyway, so they might as well. I've heard that, and this may be, sorry, this may just be Corny and Brian because they know him a little bit, but I've heard that Dr. D is a pretty interesting cat. He's different. He's a different guy, but he's cool. I'm like, that'll be neat, man. But I'm falling way behind, man, because what have I not seen yet, dude? It seems like there was one that we talked about. I haven't watched Snuka yet. I haven't watched Dino Bravo yet. Man, I got to get caught up.
Yeah, that's the two most recents. But then I'm pretty sure it was Cornette's podcast that had Dr. D on, and I think he sat down with Austin a few years back too, and he's not the crazy man that that video would lead you to believe. He's just like, it's just one of those nights, had came across the wrong guy.
Yeah, I heard that, who was it? I think it was probably Cornette, who's talked about for the longest time that I don't think he's drawn this parallel because it's a sports parallel and Corny wouldn't do that. But I get the impression that the Dr. D, John Stossel thing is kind of like Willie Mays' catch in the World Series. There are tons of guys that played with Willie that will say that's one of the most routine catches that he ever made. You can't believe some of the stuff he did. There was just a camera set up that time. And that's a good point. It's like, dude, stuff like this used to happen all the time because local news wouldn't do that because they're either smart or they know this is local business. Don't talk junk. But you get a national guy sniffing around and it's like, hey, man, if you step out of line, you get smacked. That's not – there just happened to be a camera that time. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Came at me with that bad tone. I like that tone.
Yeah, it's like Dave did what he was taught to do, and it's like there's just a camera that time. But it's cool because they're both still famous for it. So
yeah.
But good on Stossel for saying yes to. And I do love Stosselmania. That should be a T-shirt. Should be Dave smacking him with the Stosselmania logo. Speaking of which, there's a kid he used to play. If Major League Soccer ever comes back, I think he's playing for DC now. But there was a kid in Atlanta named Julian Gressel, and there were actually people that made Gresselmania T-shirts. They were fantastic. So I'm hoping that Vince never ever sees them because the logo is very similar, and he'd get all huffy. But it's just some small what the heck's it called, man? Cafe Press kind of thing. But they were cool. They looked great. I loved it. Someone took it that seriously.
Is he on Pro Wrestling Tees?
Oh man, the Pro Wrestling Tees, man. Who is it? There was somebody that just Doc and Carl. Doc and Carl's stuff is up there now, so I gotta check those out.
But man, you were talking about Crazy Vince and something you wanted to say about that.
Oh yeah, about why he's been in such a bad mood lately.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong, but I got a feeling that he got in business with the wrong guy when he hired Andrew Luck's pappy to be the commissioner of the XFL.
Oh, geez.
That makes a lot of sense why Vince is really upset because he was fired for cause. Yeah, 24 hours before you shut the league down.
Yeah,
it's hard to get that smoke to go away. And the problem that I think is that Vince
didn't hire a dummy this time.
Exactly. Vince is used to being on the front foot with all these people. This ain't no independent contractor, baby. You signed me to a deal. Well, we'll fire him and get out from underneath it. Okay. Good luck, because it just feels like that's what he's trying to do. And I'm like, you might have picked the wrong one here, brother, because I make the analogy all the time, but this is Stringer Bell in season 3 when Stringer goes to night classes and decides he doesn't just want to be a gangster anymore, man, and he wants to do legit business. And then he starts talking to Clay Davis and realizes that, the organized crime and government, whole lot nastier than this street stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. That's season 3 is underrated. Season 2 is really underrated, but season 2 is the white people season, so it's different. But season 3 is fantastic. But when Stringer Bell realizes that, oh my God, there are criminals beyond me. That's kind of where I think that's where Vince is at with a lot of this stuff. And it's exactly what you said. You didn't hire an idiot this time, man. It ain't no independent contract. You can just weasel out of a deal. It's like, no, you might have to defend that decision. He knew what he was doing when he fired the guy. You got to defend that decision now. And it's like, that would make sense to me as to why he's all upset, because he might not be hearing from his lawyers what he wants to hear. And this time, you ain't messing with somebody you can run the clock out on.
Yeah. He's used to dealing with people he can just pay to go away, or people that he can just has more money than, and I'll just drag it out.
That's the point.
And it's not going to go that way this time.
That's not who you're dealing with this time, and you're going to lose. And I swear, it's like, well, that makes sense to me that's what he's upset about. Is Andrew Luck's daddy is all like, oh boy, you owe me $20 million, sir, and I'm going to collect. And I get also that, apparently the conference call or whatever with the stockholders, of course, didn't go well because the stock price is crap. And it's so weird to me that all you hear about is how WWE's got all this cash on reserve. WWE is making more money this year than they've ever made before. La-di-da. That's great, and that's awesome for them. But if it don't make that stock share go up, you're going to hear about it. Mm-hmm. That's the problem of being publicly traded. If you don't make that stock share go up, you will hear about it. Don't nobody care about your bottom line, man. You need to make my share valuable. Yeah. And so you wanting to tank your network now, which is what all of the stock was based on. You getting that big money from Fox, that don't do nothing for me. Yeah. Turn it into ratings, and then I'll see it. But ain't nobody watching your show. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the thing also with, well, I just don't know how they're making all this money with people not going to the shows. And I don't mean like with the quarantine stuff. I just mean with the numbers going down on viewership and stuff, which has been going on all year. But that's just pro wrestling now. We've talked about it before. People still want to do that 96, 97, 98 thing. And it's like, baby, ain't nobody watching like that anymore. That's not success anymore for anyone. But it's that Fox deal. Network TV is not cable. Getting a network television deal is a monster, and that's where the money for the company was. But what does that have to do with your stock price? It doesn't. Not until you use it to buy up all the shares. Yeah. Inflate the stock price. But anyhow, Vinny's just in some real deep water now, and I just think it's catching up to him, because I do think that the whole, well, we're going to get rid of 40% of our workforce. It's like, you're probably scrapping together that 20 mil, because that's just what he's suing you for. That's not necessarily what he'll get. He might get more than that if state of Florida decides to teach you a lesson, or wherever he's getting sued. I'm not even sure. It would make sense if it was Florida because of the state tax situation, but I don't know where the XFL was incorporated. Just know everybody likes Florida now.
Yeah.
But yeah, just whenever I saw that put together, and it was all like, yeah, Andrew Luck's dad is going to sue Vince for $20 million. I'm like, that's what he's upset about, because it's all like, Vince McMahon's become a joke behind the scenes, and I didn't hear anything in that story that made him sound like a joke. It was just like, oh man, he's so grumpy these days, we're just trying to avoid him. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like a joke to me. It just sounds like, ooh, he's got money problems. Because we've talked about it before. That's the only thing the guy ever cares about. Well, the Macho Man had an affair with Stephanie when she was 16 years old, and that's why Vince was mad at him. Vince was mad at him because he took him to court. Yeah. I think he could have punched Stephanie when she was 16, and he would have gotten over it if he could have sold a couple of action figures, but he only gets mad at people that take him to court and that he can't make go away.
I've got a son too.
Yes, Ray, you can throw Shane off of tall things. We do it routinely on our show. What do you think the Money in the Bank's all about? Shane's coming off the top of that tower.
Our lease is running out. We got to throw somebody off this son of a bitch.
Tower. I thought that Corny and last thing about that was funny about how they must have known that the lease was coming up, so it's like, I just trashed the place. Like, that's a pretty funny idea. I hadn't thought about that, but Vince is sending the building out with a bang.
What part of this do we own, and what can we just totally destroy?
Yeah, seriously, that's awesome, man. Excuse me. What the heck? There was other wrestling stuff I wanted to discuss with you, and I can't believe I can't think of what it was now, man.
Man, there's nothing I can think of that went down this week. The thing I forgot to mention last week was the passing of certain people. But the Finkel passing away was like the second, that we stopped last week. I forgot to mention that.
Dude, seriously, like once we were done, both of us were like, "Dadgummit, man!"
Dang it.
And I'm with you. It's gotten worse since then with Pedicino, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about him being sick or having had issues, and I was really bummed to hear that because, man, that guy was an absolute plank in the bedrock of me getting so crazy into pro wrestling. Man, I love Joe, man. Met Joe a couple of times, met Bonnie a couple of times. They were always just cool. They were very, very nice people, man. And how awesome that they were married this whole time. Yeah. That's incredible, man. They like Bonnie Blackstone won a contest to be a co-host, and then you find out, oh, they're dating, and oh, they got married, and boy, they stayed that way for. That's just cool. That's cool, man. It's just 35 years ago, and I'm like, right on, y'all are cool.
You just don't hear that in any business.
It's true. It's
something like that staying the course.
Yeah, it's always cool when someone actually finds that right person. That's just neat, man.
Man, it was the August or September after Mania 27 was in Atlanta. They had the NWA Fan Fest in Atlanta that year. And based on who was there, I was like, I got to go. I got to go. And it was one of those kind of surprises that I don't know if he was advertised or not. He may well have been. I just overlooked it. But I'm sitting there in the conference room of this hotel, and this dude walks in. I was like, "Is that who I think it is?" And this is not quite 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago now that this was going down, and it was Joe Pedicino.
Yeah, man.
And he was older, and he wasn't getting around that well then, but at the same time, you knew who it was.
Yeah, man.
And I was like, "Oh, dude. That's the man."
Yeah, you're the man. Joe is great. That's awesome. I was really bummed to hear that. Somebody else passed too, and I can't believe I forgot who it was now. But we had a couple of people this since Fink, and I'm with you because I felt really bad about Fink not mentioning Fink too. Because like you said, the second we got done, we're both like, "Dadgummit."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
That was the thing that they brought up on the last episode of the podcast I listened to was the Talking Shop show. Doc was like, Finkel passed away. Not going to do my impersonation of him, so now I'll just do David Pinter. I was like, oh man, that one's even worse.
It is messed up when Cornette was talking about Fink passing away. That's all I could think about was Doc Gallows.
Hello.
This is Howard Finkel. It's so good. Man, is this a rib? No. That's so awesome. I can't help but think that Fink probably got used to answering that question when he called people up like that. Man, come on, who are you kidding here? This is not a joke, son. I just can't imagine how many times he had to say that.
Yeah. And, full on gimmick voice.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love it. That's awesome. Somebody posted his Hall of Fame acceptance speech. A new member of the boy, it's so good, man. Because it's like he was amped, and I'm like, good, because you deserve to be excited about that, man. That was awesome.
That was a fun one. That was cool.
And he's that dude that, like, God, every story about that guy, unless it's Cornette telling you how awful a lot of people in that company are to him, man, ain't nobody got a negative thing to say about that. Him and Tim White's the other one. Every Tim White story is about what an unbelievably cool dude that guy is. Mm-hmm. Tim White apparently is like the complete opposite of Chief Jay Strongbow. This Chief Jay, you never hear a good story about. It's like, man, that son of a bitch. She was just talking junk about that dude endlessly, man.
Yeah, man. The Chief Jay Strongbow opinion just always stuck out with me, just because it came from. I want to say it's that interview that Cornette sat down with Heenan. And just the way Heenan he just answered like he was not a nice man, and that opinion just stuck with me so
that tone of
hard.
Voice, man. Yeah, because most of the stories about Strongbow are just like examples of him being a prick and la-di-da and stuff like that. But you're right, Heenan, it's much more character driven as far as like what type of person you are. And man, you're right, Bobby had no time for that guy. I had completely forgotten that till you mentioned it, but that's you're right.
And I guess that's my other thing that kind of comes up when the interactions you see in the Last Dance documentary between Jerry Krause and Michael is it just felt like Jerry just always wanted that. I wanted the best players to like me, and when Michael, the interactions that you see in the documentary just seems like he's just crap talking with him, just giving him crap, and because it came from Michael, and he just just always, because there are players on that team that will sit down and tell you like, I kind of have that same kind of way. Like I judge people by how they treat my family and me. And there are plenty of players on the team like, Jerry was always good to my kids. He was always good to me. But because he just never got that love from Michael and Phil that he wanted, he just always kind of, came off as that prick to him. But at the same time, it's like, the boss is always kind of the bad guy. But I think that there's a lot more to it than him just being the bad guy to Michael and Phil. I think he was that guy, because there's plenty of interview footage of him talking to the media. It's like, he didn't come off too well. But I think Strongbow is that way. It's like, man, I hear too many very convincing stories. Like, I don't think we could hang.
Yeah, seriously, that Chief J, he's not a good hang. Not a solid hang.
So what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, man. Excuse me, Al.
Heck yeah, man.
I didn't just eat or anything. I don't know what's going on over here, man.
Oh, gee, just...
Oh, Lord. Don't go into just... Pass me the Tums. Pass me my Tums. It was here.
Yeah. But, man, that is what is going down.
That's
what's
it,
up.
Man. Thank you for hanging, y'all. Thanks for hanging, man.
I'll see y'all.